Streaming. All right, let's go double check the streaming here. Let's go look at the video. Double check the streaming here. Okay, wonderful. Let's go look at the video. Let's mute this. Okay. All right, so today in this session, we're going to finish this add or remove stop position handler, which was in the flyout. Yeah, because there's some buggy logic in here which we have to address. So we're gonna finish doing up that, and then the big lift today in this session is we're going to work on getting a basic test suite set up, because there's a fair amount of, we have app, we have colors, flyout. There's a fair amount of components which all don't have tests on them, and also gradient utils. Do want to handle that, so we want to get a test suite up and running today. So that's going to be the main lift today. Is this add or remove stop position handler. We'll get the bugs ironed out in that, and then we're going to add a test suite, a basic test suite in. All right, so first let's address these. There's some bugs happening in this flyout code. So what's going on here? So if we add a random color here, and then we add a stop percent, the assumption is it would add a stop percent at greater than or equal to 80 and less than or equal to 100. And when we add it in, it's coming out as, what is that, 3,971, which is not correct. So let's put a debugger in here, and let's watch it execute. So let's add one. Oops. Let's add a color. We need to, of course, we need to have the, let me see if I can do this without, maybe like yay much, and maybe if we put this down at the bottom, we can have a little more room. Open up the sources panel. Okay, better. All right, so we'll add a color. There we go. So min. So the min should be 80. If this color already has a stop, no. If index equals 0, no. Index should be 3. Else I is look backwards from the one, because it doesn't have a stop, so look backwards from this one, so from colors at 2, colors at 2, you can look for this one. I is look backwards through the colors at the, colors at that one. Look backwards through the array for the first min you encounter. What is I is assigning? I is getting assigned to. Yeah, that's not right. I want. You should be either 0 or 1, depending on if it has. Look backwards through the array. I is equal to index minus 1, and then if colors index Yeah, I don't need colors here. I is index minus 1. Let's do that again. So stop, save, refresh, delete, go through that one, add. Position has a color stop? No. It's the first one? No. Index would be 1 in this case. So if colors at 1, which is 0.5, stop positions is greater than, if colors at I, stop positions dot length is greater than 0, do the last index. Stop positions dot length is greater than 0, do the last index. Delete that one, go through that, add. Stop positions, that's the particular. So stop positions is the one that I'm changing. This is not necessarily that. It would be, this needs to be colors at index I dot stop positions. Min needs to be colors at index I dot stop positions at colors at index I dot stop positions dot length minus 1. Stop positions at colors at index I dot stop positions dot length minus 1. One more time. Get rid of this one. Add. So colors at index I dot stop positions is the stop positions with the 50%, and then stop positions dot length mod. This should evaluate to 0. So min should be 0.5 when I'm finished. Right, 0.5. Okay, good. And then break. Break the loop, and then it's still assigning it to 0, which is not what I want, because I want it, okay, so you else look backwards through the array. If you finish the loop without breaking, okay, so one more case we need to handle here. So this should only happen if you finish this without breaking, which we can actually handle by setting min to 0 initially. We can set min to 0 initially, and then we don't have to handle it here. If this is the first color, if the index equals 0, if the length, so if there is something already there, min is what's already there. If you're at 0, we've already handled it. If you're at 0 and there's not anything there, because you would have gone into this, you stay at 0. So we can handle this case actually by saying else if index is not equal to 0, index is not equal to 0, if the index is not equal to 0, if the index is not equal to 0, check, and if you find one, put it there, otherwise it stays as the 0. So in this case, the min should be 50, min should show up as 50, and there it is. Okay, min is 0.5. Okay, super. Now the max in this case should be, the max in this case should be 100. Let's see if we did that accurately. So if, what is this? If index, which is 2, 0, 1, 2, is equal to colors.length minus 1, if this is the last color, yes, max is, and we're adding a color stop, max is 100. Yes, max is 100. Okay. Alright, so we still have some strangeness going on here. Let's move the debugger up to there. Let's move the debugger up to there. Let's start max out as 100. And this is, so if the index is the last color, max is 100. Otherwise, we're doing all of this. So if we default that to a max of 100, we could check if index is not equal to colors.length minus 1, do all of this, and then if you find it, put 1 there. And I believe in that case we would not need that max equal to 100, so we could leave this actually like that. Let's do that one. So this would be the case where max is, the color is not the last color. So for example, if we add 1 here, it has to be greater than or equal to 50 and less than or equal to 80. So if we add, so min is 0.50, right? So then max starts as 100. If index is the last color, which it's not, index is 1, the last index is 2, so it's not, I equals 0. Max is the first color you encounter looping forwards through the array. Max is the first color you encounter looping forwards through the array, starting at the index after the one we're adding to. The index we're adding to is 1. So the first one after 1, the first index after index 1 is index 2. So this would be, so I is not 0, I starts at index. I is less than, I goes up to the last index, I++. If colors at the index we're looking at, stop positions, if there are any, set min to the first, and that needs to be colors at index I dot stop positions, and then break. Otherwise, if you don't find any, if none of the colors after that have any, it stays at, max stays at 100. Okay, let's do that one. Refresh. So adding a color here, min is 50. it's gonna find 80. This colors at index, colors at I. This needs to be index plus 1. Start at the 1 after the 1. You're adding. You're adding a thing to this, so you want to start at the, you're adding a stop to here, so it needs to start looking at this one, and this is index, so it needs to start at index plus 1. Okay, once more. Save, refresh, add. I needs to be 2. I is 2, super. So, whoops. Okay, that's incorrect. I didn't see the, one more time. Refresh, add, step, step, step. So index is 1, plus 1 is 2. I is less than, oh, pardon, colors.length, not colors.length minus 1. Okay, once more, and colors at index at I, which is 2, dot stop positions is the 80, that needs to be length. If the length of that is greater than 0, you want to take the first one. It is, so colors at the index we're interested in, stop positions, we want to take the first one, which is 0.8. So that should be max, not min, that should be max. And I believe that should do it. So we add, yeah, there you go, 66. That's good. That's between 50 and 80. 70 is also between 50 and 80. Yeah, correct. 51, right, between 50 and 80. Super. 55, right. Yeah, and so this is one of the points of writing tests, so I can enforce this logic. Alright, so it looks like that condition seems to be functioning properly. For this one, that also appears to be functioning properly. And if we take one off, should be between 0 and 50 is what should be creating here. Okay, now should be between 16 and 50. Neat. Okay, now what is incorrect about this one? So this is when we're adding at the last one. So that's if this is the, pardon, it shouldn't be 100. We're doing decimals. It should be 1. Add, yeah, there you go, 95. Should be between 80 and 100. Yeah, good. There you go. Neat. Now this should be between 40 and 50. Pardon, not 40 and 50. That should be between, yeah, 50 and 80, 55, right. This one should be between 20 and 50. Yes, good. We take another one off here, should be between 0 and 50. right? And then should be between 80 and 100. Yeah, good. Neat. Between 0 and 100, 89 should be between 89 and 100. Should be between 96 and 100. Neat. Between 0 and 89. Super. Now between 79 and 89. Wonderful. Okay, so that seems to work correctly. So now let's address that we have addressed the bug here. Let's remove that one. We'll deal with this. Oops. Okay, so tests. Want to add some tests. Definitely want to add some tests. So what is, now this was bootstrapped with Create React App, and Create React App comes with, yeah, it comes with React Testing Library. Super. So which one do we want? So I think the most straightforward one to test is actually going to be these utility functions, these gradient utils. So let's start there. Another thing we're actually not doing is we weren't committing nearly often enough. So let's do that also. So this is addresses add or remove stop position handler bug. That's in flyout. Add or remove stop position handler bug. Okay. So let's add a commit for that. So add these things and then we'll commit. It says fixes add or remove stop position handler bug. Fixes add or remove stop position handler bug. Okay, super. Alright, now we're going to do some tests here. Let's put the test suite maybe down there. And gradient utils. Okay, so we're gonna need to import the functions to test, which is import from, and it's gradient utils is where they are. And the things we're importing are make gradient string and random color generator. And let's do a describe block here that has, these are gradient utils, and the ones that we're testing are, this is make gradient string, and make gradient string is going to make gradient string is the thing that make gradient string function is the one that takes a colors array and a degrees and returns it's the one that takes a colors array and degrees and it returns a gradient string. So that should actually, I believe this should actually be a describe block instead of, because we're gonna have several test cases here. Because this is going to be, so make gradient string. So what exactly do I want to, what would be reasonable to test here? Yeah, what is because it has to come in this format. Default colors is the format it has to come in. Okay. And make gradient string takes the colors, reduces through them, makes the stop positions, reduces through them, stops. Yeah, this stops should really be its own function. So let me do that. Let's extract that into its own function. Make gradient color stops. Because make gradient color stops, it's literally this logic here. Paste it in this one, and you need to accept a color object, and then you return this. And so here we do stops equals make gradient color stops, passing in the color object is the stops. We could even potentially do that inline here. Color object stop positions greater than 0, return. So we're going to have a gradient string. We're going to have, this is make gradient color stops, and then we're also going to have random color generator. Random color generator. So we need to import make gradient color stops as well. Let's do make gradient string. So make gradient string is takes the accumulator, the color object, because what would be, because I'm thinking what would be reasonable to test here. because I'm going to need from gradient constants, which is up a level, which is up a level, and then constants, gradient constants. We're going to need, what is it called in here? It's called default colors. Default colors from gradient constants. So, because when I pass in this one, make gradient string. So it could be something like makes a linear gradient, or rather, how about returns a linear gradient string. So when we pass it make gradient string with default colors, we're going to expect result to be, and the string that we're expecting here is this thing. To be that. So then when we run this, we're expecting that to pass here. That's the expectation. Okay. Linear gradient, undefined degrees, FF. Okay, I forgot to pass the degrees. The degrees defaults to 90, which is something that I should have in it should be default degree. Default degree, you should be here, and default degree here, it should be support const, default degree is 90. And then here, should also import default degree, and then make gradient string, default degree, and default colors first, then degree. Colors first, then degree. So then when we run it, right, returns a linear gradient string. Returns a linear gradient string. And I mean, it would be like if you pass in a different degree, or if you pass in more. If you pass in, I think one other thing to test would be if you pass in make gradient string returns a linear gradient string. And this would be this would be something like handles. You do something like handles multiple different color stops correctly. Handles multiple colors with different amounts of color stops correctly. And this could be something like, instead of default colors, it could be, I could take the default colors, I could take this, and then you could have that in here, and that would be call it something like colors. And then how about 0.10, then 0.25, then 0.30, then nothing, and then another one, which is a different color, it doesn't really matter what. Two, three, four, five, six, doesn't really matter what. Have that be 95 of 1. So have this be colors, and then 100 degrees. Let's run it, so see what it generates. And now in here, so if we do FF0000 at 10 and 25, 000FF at 30, 6ECBFB at nothing, and then, oops, oh, arg, okay, once more, add at 10, and then at 25, 0000FF at 30, 6ECBFB at nothing, and then, okay, right, because I haven't addressed that. To fix that bug. Okay, we'll put it that way. At 95, at 100 degrees, should generate this thing. Should generate that one. The idea would be like 100%. I think that's incorrect. 10, that should not have a comma. 25. Yeah, I think that comma in between it is incorrect actually. Let's look at it. Ten. 100 degrees. RGB %. Didn't I? I feel like I fixed this. I feel like I fixed this in a previous session. This is that's doing a color hint, is what that's doing. Yeah. Okay. That is not the correct. That is not. It's valid syntax, but it's making a color hint. That is making a color hint. RGB from 0 to 10% is RGB is that red. 10 to 25 is that red. 25 to 30, that it's moving the midpoint from 25 instead of half. Okay, so this is my logic is incorrect here. So that should actually be generating that, which it's not going to do. It's going to be incorrect. It's going to fail. Yeah. Make gradient string 100 degrees. No, okay. That's a little wonky. So y is I think that's actually part of the you're including a comma space when you should not be including a comma space. So you are including a comma space when you should not be including a comma space. So this is actually, that's actually part of make gradient color stops, which is incorrect. So the stop position 1, which is wrong, is color, it's this one. The first color object, stop positions dot length is greater than 0, yes. Color object stop positions reduce all stops. You start at an empty space. You start at an empty space, yes. So you do empty space. If you're at the first index, do comma empty space for the next one. It puts in a comma and an empty space, so you don't actually need it. Yeah, so you don't actually need any of the I believe you don't need this comma here. Add 95 degrees, comma, comma, comma. Right, there you go. So now it should still be inaccurate, but because of this, okay, 95. Okay, so now what is, oh, because I put 95, it needs to be 0.95 to have it. Yeah, there you go. Okay, super. All right, next, so that's make gradient string. Next would be make gradient color stops. Now for the color stops, so this would be what? It would be, I want to test 3 conditions: when there are 0, when there's 1, and when there's 2 color stops, because the commas the commas are handled, the 4 commas are literally handled before it. It's the first one, empty string, and then you do a color object dot color, and then there's no comma, and then the color stops, and then if that's it, there's no comma. Otherwise, if it's a next one, then I do a comma space. Yeah, okay, so the commas are handled in the make gradient string. The make gradient color stops doesn't handle them, so make gradient color stops. So this would be no stops, no stops. This is 1 stop, and this would be 2 stops. So for no stops, you would do something like this one. I mean, I can have one with 2. This could be const colors, which needs to have a closing bracket there. And then this would be result. And this is what? Make gradient color stops. Passing in the color, passing in one particular color object. So we call it color. And we only need the object, don't need the array of objects. So we pass in the color. We can actually do expect this to be, and then the string we expect it to be in this case. So this is stop positions. Color object dot stop. You actually don't need these things. You only need the stop positions, because we would duplicate all of this for the so no stops. We expect it to be an empty string with 1 stop. We'll say 0.1. Expect it to be 10%. 2 stops here, 0.10, 0.25, expect it to be 10 space 25%. And let us turn that test on. Okay, what we are getting, we're getting space 10%. Okay. Make gradient color stops if you're the first one. Yeah, where am I putting those? Where are we putting those spaces? If you're the first one, empty string, and then the stop, and then percent. If you're the second one, okay, it's starting with a space. Oh, right, because there might be a space, there might not be a space. Because you don't know if there are stops going in. So okay. Yeah, because otherwise that would include the space. So if it is space 10, otherwise space 10 space 25. I see why I did that. Okay. Right, there we go. Okay, super. All right, now for random color generator. For random color generator, this might be interesting to test actually with a regex, because this is literally making a number. Because the random color generator, it's literally making one of these, and so it's making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Something that is the hash sign, the pound sign, then 6 alphanumeric digits, specifically lowercase a to z. Yeah, lowercase a to z. Lowercase 0 through 9, and then lowercase a to f. Yeah, I think regex is actually the appropriate random color generator. And this is creates a hexadecimal color. I'm not going to do the random testing. We're simply going to do this testing. I think that's beyond the scope of what we're looking to accomplish here. So this would be random color generator. And this is expect. What's the, isn't it string, I think it's string match? Is that the one? There's a, yeah, here it is. Retrieves the result of matching a string against a regular expression. There's another one though that will tell you if the regex you pass matches. Maybe it's a regex? Maybe it's a regex method? Test. That's the one. Regex test. And then you pass the string. Right, so the regex and then test and then the string. Okay, the regex, let's use this regex. There you are. This one is quite useful for matching these. I believe the regex, let me place a sample hexadecimal color in here so we can do it. I believe the regex we want to test is pound sign, and then 0 to 6, and then exclusively 6 characters. I forget the exact way to test that in regex, so we're going to go look it up. Where's the regular expression chapter? That looks promising. Assertions, I want exactly quantifiers. There you go. Matches where n is a positive integer matches exactly n occurrences of the previous integer. So it's curly brace, n occurrences of the preceding item. So if this would be something 6 times, and the something is, I think a character set is the one I want. Those are boundary type. Groups and ranges. A character class matches any one of the enclosed characters. That's the one I want. You can specify a range of characters by using a hyphen, but if the hyphen appears as the first or last character enclosed in the square brackets, it is taken as a literal hyphen to be included in the character class as a normal character. For example, ABCD is the same as A to D. They match the B in brisket and the C in chop. ABCD hyphen and hyphen ABCD match the B in brisket, the C in chop, and the hyphen in non-profit. For example, is the same as uppercase A to Z, lowercase a to Z, 0 to 9. Okay, so I want a character class. So a character class of 0 to 9, as well as A, B, C, D, E, F, exactly 6 of them, and a pound sign. Super. And also, should also match this one, right, which it does, and also this one. Yes, which it does. Okay, super. So that is my regular expression. Matches the pound character, the hash character, and then any character in the set 0 to 9, A to F, exactly 6 of those. So expect random so regex is that one. That's my regex. Random color generator. And this is hexadecimal color. And this is expect regex test hexadecimal color to be true. To be true. So when that runs, we're expecting that to pass. Creates a hexadecimal color. Wonderful. Alright, super. That is sufficient for these tests here. So that is gradient utils test. Wonderful. So let us run all the test suites, because we're going to be adding some more. And then here, this is, what did we do here? We added gradient utils tests is what we did. Wonderful. So this is add, and then commit. This is adds gradient utils tests. Gradient utils tests. Wonderful. All right, good. Next, we are going to do that's the utils. Let's start from the smallest ones. So let's do, I think stop positions is actually the smallest ones. Let's do the stop positions tests. Okay, so for stop positions, what do we actually need? So what's a reasonable thing to test for stop positions? It would be something like, yeah, this is actually better tested in where this add or remove stop position handler is, and that handler happens in a parent component, so that's where you would write the tests for it. So let's put some scaffolding in here. So we're gonna need stop positions from stop positions, yes. And we're gonna need screen and render from testing library DOM. I like that autocomplete. Render. And we're also gonna need, so describe, the SCRIBE, describe, this is stop positions. This is a component, a React component. Add a little syntax there. And the thing that stop positions is gonna do, what is it gonna do? So let me see, displays an add button. Displays an add button. Displays an add button. Or even better, this would be add button is enabled. Add button is enabled when 0 or 1 stop positions. Add button is disabled when 2 stop positions. 0 or 1 stop positions are present. Add button is disabled when 2 stop positions are present. Okay, so this would be, are those the ones I need screen and render? Not that, I need app.test. Right, you render the thing, so stop positions, and then you could literally do screen get by text add screen get by text. This would be stop positions. We need to pass it a color object. So let's bring back my defaults, which are, where are you? You are over here, constants and gradient constants. Default colors, let's use maybe one of these things. Let's call it a color. And the thing that so let's do color objects, call it the same thing. So stop position, so color object, and you also need what? You need color index, we'll call it 0, and you need stop percent change handler and enter move position handler, only if you're clicking on them though. Add button is enabled when 0 stop positions are present. Add button is enabled when 0 stop positions are present. 0 stop positions are present. Screen, we could do expect screen get by text add to be in the document. That's a function. And we only want to run this one particular test. So yarn test just that one. Okay, which means I messed up one of the syntax. Type error. Yeah, it means I messed up a syntax here. Okay. Render screen from screen get by text. Okay, what are we doing incorrectly here? Render and the thing you render stop positions. Why is that erroring? Importing from testing from Dawn testing library. Import from at testing library React. At testing library React. Okay. At testing library. Oh, it's importing from the wrong thing. That would help. Okay, so we do have to pass mock functions for these other ones. Stop percent change handler. So here we'll pass just mock, and the same thing with add or remove stop. Position, we will pass adjust mock. Add button is enabled when super. Okay, so but that's for one. I specifically want I guess for now, so for this, you would add button is enabled, and then you would do this, and you would copy it. Add button is enabled when 0 stop positions are present. Add button is enabled when 0 stop positions are present, when 1 stop position is present. So 1 stop position, whoops, but I'm not actually checking for the disabled or enabled status of it. Let's put a true to be false. So simply so it fails, because I want it to print B. Expect to be false is not a function. Falsy. There you go. That'll work. Oh, it doesn't get my. Interesting. It doesn't print the log. How interesting. I wonder if I if I did something like this, add, and then, does that work? Does that get me to print the log? How interesting. Okay. To be, what if I did like that? Interesting. That is, okay. That is not what I was trying to do here. I am trying to React testing library, this one, and maybe ecosystem. Debugging. The thing, when you use any get calls in your test cases, the current state of the container gets printed on the console. When you use any get, screen get by text add, alright, what if we do a screen get by text no. That's the thing I was looking for. Okay. Right, so there's a button with add. Okay. With add, what happens if I console.log that thing that you grab? Okay, there's the HTML button element. There you are. I'm going to type return, I'm going to type div. That should be an add should be a button. HTML button. Oh yeah, there it is. Element type button. Type button. That's fiber node. Okay. Index 0 ref pending props memoized. React props. There's a disabled false. Pending props, memoized props. Interesting. I guess I could try clicking on it. Is that going to add or remove stop position handler? Let me try something here. Let me do so add or remove stop position handler mock is a mock function, and then let us comment this one out for now. Let's not mess with that. concentrate on this one. So add or remove stop position handler mock. Let's actually pass the mock in. Handler mock. And then expect to be in the document, or rather, add button is this. So grab the button. Expect the button to be in the document. And then add button. Is it fire event? Click. What is, that's the one, firing events. Most projects have a few use cases for fire event, but the majority of the time you should probably use @testing library user event. User event. @user event. @testing library user event. User event dot type. We also discourage using user event inside, before, and after blocks. Okay. User event dot type the thing, and then a hello world. Expect. User event dot, oh, when they're saying type, is that okay? User event, so click on that and then expect. Okay, gotcha. I see. Okay. So @testing library user event. Okay, do I have that already, or do I need that? Yeah, @testing library user event. There it is. Okay, wonderful. So we need to import user. What's it called? Import user event from @testing library user dash event. All right. So here we would do user event dot click on add button, and then we would do, let me log the add or remove stop position handler mock. I want to look at it. Cannot read property click of undefined. How interesting. Okay, import user event from @testing library user event. Oh, it's a default. It's the default import. I was doing named imports. And okay, it doesn't list the mocks. Add, let's do maybe dot mock. I feel like that's the property name I'm looking for. There we go, dot mock. Calls invocation call order 1. So it's been called once, is what we're saying. Add button is enabled when 0 stop positions are present. Right, so this would be, expect add or remove stop position handler mock to have been called times 1. And then we would have an after each, do an after each, which is this. Add or remove stop position handler mock. Mock, I think it's clear. Resets all information stored in the mock, mock calls, and mock instances. Yeah, I think I want mock clear. So get the button, expect it to be in the document, click it, and then expect it to have been called 1 times. Okay. And now for here, so you would literally do the same thing. We can, so let's delete this one. Here, add button is enabled when 1 stop position is present, 0, 10, and you would do you do the same. Okay. Expected number of calls, received number of calls 2. So which means it is not add or remove stop position handler mock. Add button screen get by text. Add button to be in the document. User click. Expect. After each, add or remove stop position handler mock. Mock clear. I did think that's what mock clear was for. Just mock clear. Yeah. Right. Clear, reset, and restore. What's the difference between these? Resets all information stored. Mock clear resets all information stored in the mock calls and mock instances arrays. Be aware that mock clear will replace the mock, not just mock calls and mock instances. Mock reset does everything mock clear does and also removes any mocked return values or implementations. Does mock restore does everything that mock reset does and also restores the original non-mocked implementation. When the mock was created with Jest Spy on. Yeah, I feel like mock clear should be working here. Add or remove stop position handler mock after each. So this one, and then to have been called times 1. And then when we do this here, render stop positions. Screen get by text add. Interesting. I would have expected, that's very interesting. I would have expected. All right, let's do some logging. So this one dot mock. Get a look at the mock property. Let's log it here, and then let's also log it here. So this is before and after in the first test. that's interesting. Why is it showing up as add or remove? Oh, is this a yeah. Okay. Right. Okay, I forgot I'm doing some currying with these. Yeah, it gets called immediately. Okay. So the the mock function is the one that gets returned. Yeah. Okay. That's a function, and that gets cleared, and then add or remove stop position handler is a function that returns add or remove stop position handler mock. And like, why are they? Right, okay, so that has been called no times, and then after it has been called one times. That's super, that's what I was expecting. Okay, and then here, after it has been called one times, right, so we can get rid of these logs. Right, okay, super. And then let's get rid of those. And then so this one, add button is disabled when two stops are present, would be the same thing, the same logic, except add button is disabled when two stops are present. Here, and this would be expect item stop position handler to be called times 0 when two stops are present. Disabled when two stops are present. Right. Okay. Okay. This is it's kind of a lot of repetition here. I wonder if there's a setup approach that we can use. Does this have? Do I have Lodash in this one? I don't. I'm going to install Lodash dependencies. So let's do another one for installing dependencies. So yarn, I think it's add Lodash. Looks like we are installing. Oh, we need command line tools. Well, we did this before. I mean, yeah, you do, you need them. Sometimes that can take a while though. Okay, we will give it a moment. All right, well, it seems like it's going to take perhaps a minute or so, which is not the longest install. Right, because once we have Lodash here, the idea would be to import. The one I'm looking for is merge. what I'd like to do here is I'd like to have a setup function that essentially calls this stop positions with some number of default props, but it also takes, you can override it with props and default. Well, you can pass props to it, and there are default props for this object, this component for stop positions. And for example, the default props would be these things. So color object, color index of 0, a stop percent change handler as a jest function, and an add or remove stop position handler, which is add or remove stop position handler. Which means you are going to need to be declared up here. And I guess we could do all this inside the describe block. That seems fine. So because also the color object, something like here, you could be defined up here. Yeah, 12 minutes, look at that. Okay. So add or remove stop position mux, you have a default props which has a color object, and then color index, stop position handler, and the add or remove stop position handler, right? Setup, you can take the props, and then the setup, what it actually does is it calls render on this, on that stop position, but before doing that, it has, so very specifically, color object, color index, stop, is it right? Something like view props equals, and then this is where you need merge, because you pass in the new object and the objects which are going to overwrite the properties. So the first one is default props, and then the next one is any props that you pass in directly, and then you spread those into the stop positions. In fact, we could even do this in line here, like that. We don't need that. And then, so here we can simply do setup instead of this render. We can do setup, and we don't need to pass in that color object. And if I did all that syntax right, I believe that still should pass. Go back to our test. Yeah, there we go, cool. And the same thing, similar thing here. We do a setup, and the object, the props object that we would pass, passing in a props object that has a color object, props object that has a color object property, which has our color object, and the thing that we really need to overwrite is this stop position field. So it's that is the thing that needs to be overwritten. So then when we comment this out, and we can comment also all of that out, we run it, we're expecting it to still pass. Yeah, neat. Do this, and then get rid of this stuff. And then also here, we would do something similar, except, so all of that can be, and we do 0.25. And we comment out all of this stuff. And we are still expecting that to pass. Neat. All right. Yeah, I kind of prefer that approach. It is shorter, yes, and there's less to get distracted from, but also it really allows you to focus in on what's actually changing between the tests. So, for example, in these 3 tests, the thing that's changing is the amount of stop position elements there are, and that is, in my opinion, that's super obvious. It really funnels your attention towards, like, oh, it's whatever it is in the default. Well, what's it in the default? Oh, well, in the default, it's an empty array, and then you'd be funneled to that by looking at this, and you see like what's changed between these. Oh, it's the 0.10, 0.10, 0.25. That's the thing that's changed. So for me, that's why I like doing them that way. Okay, so that is one part that we have tested from this. So now we've done the button click should only happen when add or remove stop positions should only be enabled when there's 0 or 1 stop positions. When there are 2, it shouldn't be enabled. Okay. We haven't actually done the like listing how many stop positions there should be, because there's a whole bit of, for instance, yeah, and we got these add and remove buttons. That's also part of this logic here. Yeah. So this should be, it could be what, like displays the appropriate number of stop position input fields. We could do displays the appropriate number of stop positions, and then what is this disabled on the input? If stop position's length is less than 1, am I still using that? I think I'm not using that actually anymore. Yeah, I don't believe I'm using these things, add or remove. Because you can always remove a stop position. It doesn't display if you can't, if it's not there, it doesn't display. And you can always, the remove button only displays when there is a thing to remove. So this, I think, is actually unnecessary, along with this one, the disabled on the input field. Because the input field is never disabled. It doesn't render if it's not there. Pardon. Stop positions length. Yeah, I had seen this earlier. What was I using desired stop positions for? Is that a thing that we were going to? Right, because it's in the gradient constants, and then because it's in there, it got included in the tests. Also in the tests, but where exactly is it used? I'm setting it here on the click. I don't actually see it. Used anywhere. Let me comment out in all of these spots where it's used. I don't believe I need that. Yeah, I don't think that's needed, actually. That is not needed. Okay, super. Let us simplify these. And the same thing here, remove it out of this. And here, remove it out of this thing. And also here, remove it out of all of these. Super. Okay. So now inside stop positions, that input field never needs to be disabled, nor does the button with the X ever need to be disabled, because if you're not able to click it, if there's no stop position to delete, that button won't render, so it doesn't need to be disabled. So we can remove this along with this one. Okay, now there was something it was saying, you provided a value, there was an error. You provided a value prop to a form field without an onChange handler. Which one? A value prop to a form field without an onChange handler. Where? Which one? We talking about stop positions here? Stop positions 14. The only value prop I see in here is stop position is this one, and that definitely has an on-change handler. Stop percent change handler. Oh, I wonder if it's because stop percent change handler, a function that returns a mock function. That was the thing. It was again with the currying. Okay, super. So that's stop positions. That's this button from stop positions. Next thing could be when the, what else? Renders the correct amount, renders an appropriate amount of stop position input and stop position, renders an appropriate amount of stop positions, the input and the X buttons. The incrementing it when there's 0, when there's 1, when there's 0, when there's 1, when there's 2. Incrementing the stop positions is going to be handled where that stop percent change handler, and then the add or remove stop position handler is also handled there. Yeah, okay. So the only other thing then to add here is it renders an appropriate amount of stop positions. Add button. So this actually could be done in a describe block for, this could be add button. Add button is, and then or you could even do add button, and then all of these things can go in here, and then this would be stop positions add button, stop positions input field and close button. Add button is enabled, renders an appropriate amount of stop positions when, renders an appropriate amount of stop positions when there is, and then 0, 1, 2. When there are 0, there's 1, there are 2. And you would do this, actually, this add or remove here. You'd actually do the, don't think you need it there. This is simply checking the rendering. So you do setup when there are 0, and we are expecting what exactly? Because the thing we're rendering is one color object with 0 stop positions. So this would be expect I think you'd get by, oops, not there. Put that over here. Same thing with that over here. Oh, good, software was installed. Wonderful, thank you, Mac. There we go. We need, I need, yes, React testing library, the queries. Get by role. Get by role, that's the one. Get by role, name, and then stop position. So you would do input equals screen get by role button. Is it button? Get by role button name button with a name of stop dash position 1. Stop dash position dash 1. Or even you could do get by role. It doesn't even have to be that specific. The get by role type. Get by role type button type number. Expect input. What does get by? Returns the matching query and throw a descriptive error if no elements. Query by returns and returns null if no element is present. So that should be erroring. Interesting. Okay. Expect input, let's say, to be in the document. Oops. There. Did you not save? I feel like you didn't save. Ooh, interesting. Okay, screen get by role button type number. I wonder if you can't do accessible. What was the expectation? Get by, yeah. List of roles. Widget roles. Button. Role button. What exactly can I thought I could pass type as a number. What's the second argument here? Options. Role options. What are the role options? So what do I need here? I need the API for get by role. Where is the get by role? Here we are. That's what I needed. Okay. Exact hidden name normalizer selected, checked, pressed, expanded, query fallbacks, level. Okay. So maybe an input with a type of number is a different role. That would. Okay. We're looking for maybe an input. Let's look at the checked, pressed, expanded. Let's look at the about queries. Look at the playground. Where is that playground? Here it is, testing playground. Ah, okay, wonderful. Testing playground, super. So give me let me copy the markup that I have. This type number name the name the dash name value say 100 on change and let's get rid of this one. And all of this. And all of this. And all of that submit. Open, close, open, close, open, close. There you go. Can't use screen get by. Use container query selector. Screen get by role button. Right, but it's an input with a type of a number. Okay, I did install, I believe I installed isn't that I believe I installed a testing playground here. Yeah, there it is. This one. Oops, this one. So come on, what query do I use on this thing? I want to grab, I mean, I know for this, I can, oh, that's interesting. Clear highlights. Oh, it does. Huh, interesting. Get by text. All right, I'm gonna do a testing ID. I'm gonna do what's the other one? Get by test ID. Test ID. Test ID. Data dash test ID. Data dash, how we format it? Data dash test ID. And this would be, it would literally be the same thing. This name, call it this, literally the exact same thing as the name. Although I feel like if it's the same thing as the name, I should be able to get it by the name. Let me double check that I actually cannot do that before we go down the test ID route. Stop position 1 dash color index. Color index dash color index 0. So when we render this, we're expecting this one. Name, yeah, there you go, name, stop position dash 1 dash color dash 0. I also have a data test ID, but that's probably redundant when you have, well, it would be this one when there is 1. So if we do this, we can skip this one for now. Setup, because we're going to need this thing when one stop position is present. We could do this. When one stop position is present, get by role button, stop position 1, color 0. Expect input to be in the document. Yeah. Okay, run it. Renders an appropriate amount of stop positions when there is 1. Okay, here are the accessible roles. There's a button with a name of add and a button with a name of X. Aha. Am I looking at the wrong thing? I think I'm trying to get an input field as a button. Widget roles. Composite roles. Landmark roles. Live region. Grid cell, option, progress bar, radio, scroll box, search bar, menu item, slider, spin, switch, tab. Is it text box? ARIA role of an input. Let's do a search. ARIA role of an input number. Applicable elements that trigger response when activated by the reader. So it's not a button. Checkable interactive controls, no. Form, grid cell, heading, image, list, main, mark, navigation, switch, tab. Okay. So what's the ARIA defines semantics that can be applied to elements, with these divided into roles, defining a type of user interface element, and states and properties that are supported by a role. Authors must assign an ARIA role and the appropriate states and properties to an element during its life cycle, unless the element already has an appropriate ARIA semantics. Addition of ARIA semantics only exposes extra information to a browser's accessibility API and does not affect a page's DOM. Okay, so we're trying to figure out where what accessibility role a an input with a type of number. Let me search for that. Accessibility role of input type equals number. Okay. That looks promising. Input type, well, now what am I looking at here? Input type equals number. Element is supported. Array label should be used as accessible name. Number with label. API mappings for input. Spin button role. Input type attribute in the number state. Oh. If implemented as a spin button, use mapping for spin button. If implemented as a text input, use mapping for text box. Edit. So it looks like it's either a spin button or a text box. Okay. A spin button or a text box. So let's change this then to text box. Oh. Here. Change that one to text box. The role to, oh, it is a spin button. Okay, if implemented as a spin button. Okay, so it is a spin button with name. So let's do, oops, spin button. With the role SPIN BUTTON and name stop dash position dash 1 dash color dash 0 like that. Whoa, with spin button, with the role spin button and name. Oh, interesting. Why is the name? That's interesting. So why is the name? That doesn't quite make sense to me. Why is spin button has a name of nothing? Interesting. We're gonna do it as a data test ID. So that'd be here. Get by test ID. And then stop position color 0. Expect input to be in the document. Because this would be, well, I wonder if that is spin button. It's interesting. What is this HTML accessibility? This is useful. HTML accessibility API mappings 1.0. Quite useful. Okay, so if there is one, and then if there are two, should be if there are two, 10, 0.25, screen get by test ID to be in the document, and then we could do input 1, and then we could do input 2, position 2, color 0, right? And we would do this thing, except not get by, do query by expect input to be null, Except we still have it. Skipping that test once more. Okay, super. I think that is sufficient. Is that sufficient? We have tested for this input. We also need to test for the appropriate button. Why am I doing J+1? I don't need to do J+1 for all these. Change these to J. And then we would literally change this to stop position 0, stop position 0, stop position 1. And then, so for 0, so we'd also test for a label, and the label would be label. Do I get by maybe tag name? Users find elements using label text. There are 0, so if we do label, it'd be screen query by label text first. This would be expect label to to be null. And you would do the same thing here, except expect label to be in the document, and here you would do expect label to be in the document, and then expect second. You do this as label 2, you do this as label 1. When you run all of those, still expecting them all to pass, and they did not. Received value must be an HTML element. Screen query by label text first. What did it return? Received has value, null. Okay, screen query by label text 75, it's failing, so this one, screen query by label text, stop position 0, screen query by label text, okay, do get by. Label for stop position dash, it really should be named for stop position dash 0 color dash 0. Should really be for stop position dash J dash color index. One ST. Screen get by label text 1 ST. Oh, found a label with the text of 1 ST. However, no form control was found associated with that label. Make sure you're using the for attribute or aria labeled by attribute correctly. Oh, I'll bet it's because it wasn't finding the right thing. I'll bet that's why it's failing. Not quite. Stop dash position dash color dash 0 is the name of the input field. Stop dash stop stop dash position dash 0 dash color dash 0. Interesting. How interesting. I wonder if it's literally something as simple as they should always be inside of a form. Make sure you're using the for attribute. Interesting. That is not what I would have expected. Definitely not what I would have expected. We focus in on the only one that's failing here. Screen get by label text. No form control was found associated to that label. Make sure you're using the for attribute or aria-labeled by attribute correctly. I thought I was, but let's go find out. Let's go double check. So MDN input, yeah, MDN input. We could do input type number. Name. And additional attributes. So we're looking for, that's validation. We look at the input, or specifically the number. Input type attribute in the number space. Let's look up associating a label with an input field. All right, there's the MDN page. The label represents a caption for an item in a user interface. The label text is not only visually associated with its corresponding text input, it is programmatically associated with it too. This means that, for example, a screen reader will read out the label when the user is focused on the form input, making it easier for an assistive technology user to understand what to do. You can click the associated label to focus, activate the input, as well as the input itself. This increased hit area for eyes image and trying to touch. To associate the label with an input element, you need to give the input an ID attribute. The label then needs a for attribute whose value is the same as the input's ID. Alternatively, you can nest the input directly inside the label, in which case the for and ID attributes are not needed because the association is implicit. Ah, it's an ID. I was mistakenly assuming that it is the name. No, the name is what gets is the key that gets sent to the server if you're doing if it's on the submission of a form and the current value. It's the ID. That's why it was incorrect. All right, so this needs to also have an ID of this same thing. There. There's the ones. Super duper. Okay. So let's take off this it only. So when there are 0, you should query by label text and should be null. When there's 1, you should get by label text, and it should be in the document. And then when there are 2, you should get by label text, and they will both be in the document. Wonderful. Okay. All right. And that is, we got the input, we got the label, and let's do the button. There should be a button with an X in it. Lowercase x for now. So these would also be in the same things here. This would be query by role, button with name of X, button to be none. Oops, that's part of the options object. And that should still pass. Good. And then you would do the same thing here, except in get by instead of query by. Get by role button X, expect button to be in the document, like there. And you would do the same thing, similar thing, get all by role button name X, and then expect button, these should be buttons. Right. Expect, so which expectation do I need? I want to have length 2, is that the one I would use? Expect buttons to have length 2. There you go, that'll work. Super. So it's finding the button, it's finding the input field, finding the button, finding the label, and so here's the button that it's found. There's the button that it's found. That's the label, and that's the input. It's found the appropriate amounts of those. And we tackled this add or remove stop position buttons also. Good, okay. That is then sufficient tests for stop positions. So let's add some, right? That is all super, okay. Good, we've added those. So let's look at what we've done here. We added Lodash, right, the data right, and there's all these stop position tests. Wonderful. Some cleanup here as well. Wonderful. Okay, so let us add all of that. And this is adds stop positions tests. Adds stop positions tests. Yes. All right. Where are we at on time? All right, I think this is good for today. So I think we're actually going to stop this session here. So in the next session, we would continue doing, we're going to continue writing tests. So we need to do tests for, let's write down the components that we need to have tests for. So app needs tests, color needs tests, colors needs tests, and flyout needs tests. Because we did stop positions today, and we did gradient utils today. Super. Yeah, so app color, colors, and flyout are next on the list. So we're going to be tackling some of these, probably color and colors, because flyout's going to be a bit involved. And the next thing after that, I think we want to get into this because the next thing we could do the input validation. The polishing also is another big thing we got to tackle. And there was also a bug on, there was a bug on the editing the input field directly. So this is, I think that min2colors bug has been addressed, but there is a bug on editing the color input field directly. There's a bug there. So yeah, we'll try to address this bug. I'll try to address this bug, and we do have to add some of these tests, probably the color and colors like I mentioned before, and then this change the CSS to SCSS is probably going to be one of the next things. All right, so that's it for today. I'm going to call it, and see you in the next session.